Welcome back to another exciting episode of the new Ogden Cinema podcast, brought to you today by Great White Pottery, one of our sponsors. So exciting times. There's always something to talk about out there, but I think out of the two of us, you've got way more exciting news than I do today. So do you want to
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
kick us off?
Yeah. Well, in fact, we haven't actually had a chance to speak in kind of a while. There's been a lot of different things on, going between us, and on your end, there was some, some family emergencies that popped up, and so, but in that time, I finished a new script. Um, Called Left
Nice.
for Dead so far. That's going to be my working title. I was not aware that there's a very popular video game series called Left for Dead, but fuck them. So uh, there were some people. So I've already spoken with BJ Wimpy, who's an actor who's been an acting friend of mine for a few years now, and we've worked on a handful of projects. He was in my short film, Ancient Evil Wolfman, or Moon's Blood, I mean, Ancient Evil Moon's Blood. And he was also the star in our other short film, Convicts and Chocolate, which I have some updates on as well. But I've already had a meeting with him and my other producing partner, Danielle Bendinelli, and then also my wife, Brandy. And they seem to like the script quite a bit. And we started talking about like when we could start kind of ramping ourselves up. Brandy busted the script out for a few other people yesterday that had previously been in Convicts and Chocolate, and they're down for it as well. Um, my pitch for this isn't as sharp, but I got to think of something here soon. But so basically, what it is there's a movie. I think you've seen, Jason. There's a Rob Redford movie. I think it's called All Is Lost, and he's
Mhm.
like stranded on a boat, and it's basically just him. And there's like zero dialogue throughout the entire movie. And I looked at that script, and that script was only 40 pages. But because the dialogue stripped down, and it's really just him going through some certain actions. So same thing with Left 4 Dead. There's no dialogue except for on the last page. It's about a guy who's drifting to a world that's not too far from our distance here, especially with the way that certain governments are acting right now. And but there's but kind of like in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, when they start when the two characters are being pursued by um LaForge or whoever, right? The guy with they find themselves just kind of like being pursued by somebody, and then they're way off in the distance, and it's kind of always coming out. There's a good 20 minutes of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid where that's pretty much happening. And I took that and I went, well, what if it was like in this world where there's a person who's just, they're just following you. They're following you, and eventually the two forces collide, and violence and gunplay and things like that. And if the person's by themselves, then they don't have to talk, and it really makes it easy on all that. Well, it made it easy writing it, so that worked out too. But it had to, but so it clocks in. I got 63 pages here, so
Nice.
but I think typically, as we know, one page of screenplay is equal to a minute. But I think that like not some of the pieces I didn't write out fully what the action is, because there's a lot of action. There's some action scenes, so I just wrote kind of and then fight scene or something, and kind of pushed it in. Like, so that's obviously going to be something that would be fleshed out into a longer script, or would be if it was, like when you have a dialogue and stuff like that, it kind of eats up the page. But so that's the new script. So
Awesome. Well, that's one thing too where you could, you storyboard out the action scene and
yeah,
you find out probably what you're looking on that, but
yeah.
still like that's awesome. Congratulations.
Ah, thanks. I mean, one thing I didn't look at is I didn't look at the Mad Max scripts, like especially Fury Road, because I know that those movies were kind of built from the storyboards. So I guess I could have looked at those. I did look at Butch Cassidy Sundance script. I looked at Apocalypto's script, and then I looked at No Country for Old Men. Because another thing, if I make the movie, what I want is I don't want not only did I not write any dialogue, except for the last little bit, couple pages, but I also like No Country for Old Men, the tension. There's no score in the movie, except for the credits. But other than that, the movie doesn't have a score at all. And I, when I was looking at what I've always really enjoyed the scene where like Javier Bardem basically he starts attacking Josh Brolin at the hotel. Josh Brolin's trying to get away, and you're almost not even seeing Javier Bardem. You're just seeing bullets just flying and smashing into things that are around him as he's trying to run on foot and whatnot. He even gets into a truck and with a stranger, and then the stranger gets shot right in the neck, and so that kind of stuff was what was drawing the inspiration for it. And then like Apocalypto, where it's like a chase film, as Mel Gibson described it actually in a recent interview. So that's that's the story concept. So, and if again, if I'm making it, I'd like to set it in Utah and use a lot of like Utah locations and kind of just keep it in Utah as well. As I don't know, as just a little cherry thingy as well. So hopefully,
Yeah,
Utah places will pick it up.
it's awesome. That's awesome. I was about to recommend a resource, but apparently it has recently shut down. There's a site called the Script Lab, and the cool thing I liked about that site is they offered tips for screenwriting, but they also had stored PDFs of scripts that you could for free download. Like you could only do a certain amount per day, but you could download scripts for free and read them. I was going to say, see if you can find the Mad Max one. However, that
It's
doesn't exist.
yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I'll be honest. Like kind of a collector as well. Like as some of us know, especially you, Chad. I know you know, but uh, I'm pretty sure. Like I probably bought scripts off there that were printed out, and then they charged $20 for them. And hey, if you have the inclination to do so, and you can make money off of people like me to do it, I guess. But it was really cool to have, and it really is cool when you're in the mood. Like one of the challenges I had a hard time with was even it's hard to find even printed screenplays right in book format.
Mhm.
But sometimes like you really want to, like Mad Max is not like it's not a common one, right? They're going to do like the Academy Award winning scripts. Like King's Speech is going to have
yeah.
1,000,000,001 printed copies of the script out there versus, probably the original Mad Max or Road Warrior, which would probably be closer to what it sounds like you're talking about with less pared back dialogue.
Mhm.
But I don't know. It's really important. I think it's awesome that you were reading other screenplays to get in the mindset because I think that's in like for me, like I like ingesting a lot of art when I'm getting ready to write,
Mhm.
whether it be visually or whatnot. Like, I mean, there's times where I'm like, I want to do a Brian De Palma film, so that's what I watch. But Brian De Palma, I love him as a filmmaker, but he's actually not one to have a lot of like commentaries out there on, and his screenplays are not as easy to find and
To
track
find, yeah.
down.
I,
So
do you know he builds out his scenes after he finds the location? So I don't know how like let's say like a movie like Blowout or even the ending of Carlito's Way. I'm sure it wasn't written exactly the way it plays out on as far as the ending goes, as far as like up and down the stairs through the train. These guys are here, these guys are here. I think that's something he builds out later, and that's kind of what I left and Left for Dead was just the opportunity that I'll figure some of that out. So I
sure,
wrote like a series of shots, um, but there's also kind of like, and then Ian Fleming in his novels for James Bond wrote a lot of like the pistol cracks is how he would describe like instead of saying like boom or pop or whatever. And I use boom or pop too, but I would then just put the pistol cracks, the drifter ducks. So they're kind of like they're just beats. I wrote in certain parts. I wrote beats. That's not to say the screenplay is the screenplay. I mean, it's got pages like
Yeah, yeah.
anything, you know. But so and I think where I found some of the scripts was Studio Binder. It's an online website, and I think it's called Studio
Nice.
Binder. They have other tutorial videos. I know their YouTube channel had a tutorial on like how to write action, and they used a scene from John Wick as something. That's what I was more so looking at was like, what is the structure for writing that action? And because like I have another script over here called that you've encouraged me to take a look at, and I actually started eating into it the other day. Now that I've finished that one, um, I have fuck me further away. I have a script that I wrote 10 years ago called "The One You Feed," and one of the things I did in here was I actually wrote out the fistfights and how the fistfights happen. And I think it's because I was planning on me being the director, and I still could. I just don't know that I'll do it exactly like that. I've had time to digest it. There's a few story notes that were provided by you and others in our group that I didn't take, but then as time's gone on, I'm like, I can see how maybe that's actually not a bad idea. Some things just needed digesting, and and that script came out to like 140 something pages, but I know that there's a lot of fat in there that could be trimmed. So I'm actually kind of like taking a quick look at it. But my goal with doing that, my personal goal with doing that is that I don't spend forever and a day on it. That if I'm going to go through and edit a script that I already spent 2 years writing, which is what happened with the one you feed, that I that in somehow 2 to 3 weeks I really just cut it down because I've kind of already been thinking about it for 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And as you have also encouraged me to do is shop them online through festivals and see what kind of buzz can happen with them uh, and go from there. I'll make one more comment about so actually coming up here soon. Brandy and I, my wife, Brandy McDonald, who directed Convicts and Chocolate short film that we have on our YouTube channel. We'll be going to LA for a film festival out there. So we're really excited about that. So again, I need to sharpen my pitch and my log lines for the new script. And we also just accepted to another festival here in Utah. The Zepstone, I think, is the name of the
Oh,
festival.
nice.
It'll be out in I believe the dates for that are going to be September. So we got a few things coming up in that sense. And then I believe, speaking of scripts and going to festivals, you have some things to share.
Well, if Zepstone, I actually think I used to work with the people who run that festival,
Oh, cool.
or at least help coordinate with it. So I believe it's the farmers, Alicia and her husband. I can't remember, his name escapes me off the top of my head, but yeah, if that's the case, we'll have to, before that event, you should let me know and we can chat, and I could even try to coordinate, maybe do like a semi-introduction so that you guys can network out, and maybe she could even introduce, because that's what this is all about, right? Is
Yeah.
networking and chatting. And she's the one that had filmed with the dude. The dude's been a character actor for a long time. He's got like a really like gnarly face, but she used they're making a movie called The Witch of Wanderer Lane, I believe. And the guy's a famous character actor. Of course, I can't think of his name. He's in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I think he's got like a beard, and he's like one of the Ravagers that's on the other team that they end up like mowing down and fighting through the movie. But like yeah, I'll have to look him up. But anyway, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, regardless of how big he is in any movie, like I've seen this guy in a million and one movies, and by having him in your movie too, like that's it's awesome. Like
Mhm.
it gives you more weight, right? Because that's I think that the getting eyeballs on movies is one of the big, like that's everybody's biggest goal, and so having a name is better than nothing but no names, right? And
Yeah.
so that's really cool. The one thing I was gonna say, and maybe even recommend, with your screenplays, you're shopping it around, like even if you're looking for like inexpensive competitions and screenplay competitions, Film Freeway has some good ones. Coverfly is also a really good resource if you and
Okay.
those who are listening have never used it before. I think they even collaborate together in some ways. So like if you submit through one, like the other platform recognizes it. But Coverfly think also promotes out to industry people as well. It's kind of got a different component to it. But some of those competitions, like they'll help. They may even like read your script and then suggest a log line or synopsis. And for me, like I'm not great at
Yeah,
that part, and I
I'm not great at
recognize
that
that.
either.
But what I did was like once I got a couple of log lines in my journeys, I actually started using like I would throw it into like ChatGPT to like, hey, revise this and give me some other flavors on this, and then you know take that take the log line from more of an industry professional, workshop it myself now that I've got like a diving board, and then like refine it and make it my own with
Hmm.
some other ideas too. So just sharing some thoughts both for you and for all the millions and millions of people listening. But yeah, no, that's awesome. The thing that for me to announce, like Edgewater was selected as a screenplay for the Oxford Script Awards. I don't know that I made it into the semifinalist round or the quarterfinalist, but as that comes up, I'll either let people know or whatnot. But that's it's always good to get more. Um, Exposure out there and get more feedback. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me is like just trying to um, refine my scripts right now.
Yeah.
The one thing too, I need to put the nose to grindstone a little bit more too now that things are settling down. But the some of the recent, I do a lot of networking and writers workshops. I try to consume as much free stuff as I can because if it comes down to paying $50 for class or paying $50 for, submissions, plural, right, for
Mhm.
multiple, I'd rather kind of get the feedback
Yeah.
than spend $50 on a script writing course. I think, I mean, as many industry professionals that I've listened to talk about too, like a lot of times it's just luck. And as long as the story resonates, like it can have imperfections
Hmm.
and go from there. So one thing that they kept talking about though was making your script as tight as possible before you start pitching it to like literary managers and the like and representation, which has been a goal of mine, right? And I think it's a goal of everybody's is to try to get
Hmm.
that next. How do you get somebody to advocate for you that's on the inside of the system? And I think one of the challenges, like I've won a lot of awards, I've placed in a lot of competitions, but nothing huge. And so, does that say everything? No, but it still means that I've got a work in progress, right? That's what I
Hmm.
take out of it, and I think I can absolutely make some of these things better. And one of the things that they talked about too is like not being afraid to actually do um, a cold, solicitation to those type of places. But if you're going to do that, you better sure it is your strongest script and you're ready to like you have found all the gaps and filled them and you are ready to go to bat with your one swing because you may never
Hmm.
get another shot with that literary management company again, right?
Yeah.
So I think those are just some things I wanted to share because I think it's like the journey is outstanding, right? Like we've talked about it several times. Like I don't do this because um, I don't do this because I want to make it rich. Like, would I love to? Absolutely. Like, but it's like anything. It's like hitting the lotto. I
Hmm.
mean, Bill Burr is an artist in his own art form, and even though he's a stand-up comedian, he does acting and whatnot. And it's good to hear people like, no, man, if you just grind and no matter how hard it looks, you just keep grinding and then you'll make it. Like Bill Burr, when I was listening to him talk about the lead up to his new special and to Glenn Ross, he's like, dude, it's hitting the lottery. Like, there's no two people that get the same way. Like, there's no like, it's right place, right time, and then once you get your opportunity right, not fucking it up,
Hmm.
right? And so, I mean, I wish there was a path for all of us, right? But if I thought that that was my only path, then I wouldn't work. I would just do this. But you know, it's the side hustle until it's a full time job, and and with that in mind, like I don't want to bankrupt my family to pursue my passion, but I also I think of peers that we've met in like filmmakers, screenwriters, and whatnot. And it's interesting because I think sometimes there's so much desperation to sell and become the millionaire that's wrote a script, which there was a spec script that I guess recently was sold for $3 million, but the chances of that are so slim. And being
Yeah.
able to even sell a script for hell, I would venture to say, I'm not going to speak for you, but if I was able to sell one of my scripts for even $20,000 that funds the other script I have,
Hmm.
then that's
I
a
do.
that's a win. You know,
That
I
being
think.
said, if anybody wants to buy the script for $20,000, option the rights to make this to make the movie, send I will sell my baby, and you can go make the movie. All right, I got 8 other ideas. I'll write the next one and so yeah.
But I think I think it's interesting. It's like all of these things, right? I think what you're talking about and the way we've approached it in the last couple of years, we're doing the right things, and the networking being the key component, and then
Hmm.
meeting the right people in the right place. Um, have you seen that? Have you seen that they did like a 4 part documentary called RoboDoc? I think is what it's called. Have you seen that?
Uh-uh.
I think Prime Video has it right now. But it's a 4 part. It's basically like a 2 hour, 2.5 hour documentary on RoboCop and the making of the very first one.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And yeah, it's on Prime Video. I know that Jeff Bezos and everybody is evil. However, um, I also know enough people did not cancel their memberships, so I'm still going to
So
talk about it
yeah.
because for, right now it's one of the very few ways you can still get physical media. By the way,
Yeah.
um, but like I watched it on there, and it was fascinating to hear like Paul Verhoeven, who had made like just his journey in making some of the most successful Dutch films of all time, and then coming over here to America to break through, and then it's funny because they're like hits the jackpot with RoboCop, and it's interesting because I think like the amount of money it made versus how much it was made for, um, like those budgets just don't exist, and so that margin for success doesn't exist. It feels like in some of these ways too, but to listen to how much they fought and then how much even with the studio backing it, right? Like they
Mhm.
networked in because I think the guy who wrote the screenplay was like a screenplay reader, and then he became a junior exec at one of the studios and ended up networking into other areas and got RoboCop greenlit at
Mhm.
that point. But to hear about how hard they had to fight for it, like it's just yeah, it's it's incredible, and it's incredible too to think about how much like uh Peter Weller is an interesting cat and is an interesting career. He's made a lot of great films and made interesting films with his performances. and to hear him talk about Paul Verhoeven and like I guess he was like insulted to even audition, but they eventually got him to audition, and it was his like intensity as an actor, um, that they were like, "Yep, this is RoboCop, and we can make it a reality." And you think about how ludicrous the premise of RoboCop is, and they're totally right. Like if you have anybody else in that suit, right, it's just not as it's not it's not as effective. I mean, how many people did they put in the suit afterwards, and
Yeah.
nobody can match that. But I mean, you think about reading the script and seeing the finished product. Like originally, they wanted RoboCop to move fluidly like Spider-Man, and to be like running across objects and doing car chases like on foot. Suit was so big, and so you hear how everybody gives up until they get like a mime, like basically a coordinator, like very famous for like choreography and ballet, I believe. And he tells Peter Weller, like, watch Ivan the Terrible by Eisenstein and just
Hmm.
see the performance. And then he went, yep, this is it. And you look at how that movie is, and like it's just for all the mess, for all the headbutting, all the intensity that goes into making a project, and then how easily it can fail, to have it be such a success that's never been recaptured, but also
Hmm.
is just, yeah. Now it's fascinating. It gets me jazzed for like filming at our level, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
Yeah.
it, yeah, a lot of it
Yeah.
we can do. In fact, I actually bought, I have a project, like I have a digital projector. It'll project in 1080p, right?
Hmm.
But thinking about like what they're doing with Mandalorian and just like the older style of filming stuff, like I bought on Amazon. It's like a 120-inch projector. But my thought is, what I want to do is like go out and film stuff and then rear project onto
Hmm.
it and then film somebody against it, because
Yeah.
why not? Like that's the like,
I've had a similar thought of doing something like that too, of rear projecting or seeing if we can even do it with because I have a projector as well. I'm like with what technology we have at our micro budget level. Um and like not that it like um not I don't have anything in mind right now that I would rear project, but just so that I know that we have the tool,
yeah,
right? Like that we could do it instead of green screening or I guess like what if characters are in a car or there's a car chase or something like that or now that I mentioned it, there's a fucking side by side chase in my movie over here and I wouldn't want to get everybody hurt but if I knew I could successfully um rear project, why not park the bitch in the car and or not car sorry park the bitch in the garage and then set up the screen and shoot it that way for like
yeah.
close-up shots and other stuff, you know? Yeah.
I mean, even if it's slightly off, like go back and watch like it's all the Hitchcock movies, right? Like it's all the shit
Hmm.
we love. In fact, Pulp Fiction, right? When they're driving around, like we're projected behind them, right?
Yeah. Some of it's stylized so that you can tell that it's projected, like when he's doing the heroin.
Yeah,
Some of them they park the car on like another on like a trailer and they just pull it around town and whatnot. I mean, there's stuff like that, but um, Hitchcock, there's some moments where like they're just characters are walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk, and just so they don't have to dub it later or something like that, they're recording, they're they're doing it, and it doesn't look. I don't know what it looked like then, but it certainly doesn't look great now. But there's a shot of Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut that I didn't realize it was rear projected, and it's him walking down the street And when I see it now, I'm kind of like, oh, I guess I see it, but I just thought they for sure were on location somewhere. Um, there's a couple moments in a lot of James Cameron stuff is rear projected, and there's a scene that's in Terminator 2 after they successfully get Linda Hamilton out of the psych ward and they're driving away, and you, that's probably the worst part of the rear projection. You can tell that was like day for night shot and then rear projected in, but no.
I still dig it. I think as long as
Oh, I love the movie
it's no,
by
but
all
I
means,
mean,
yeah.
but as long as it's your aesthetic, like
Yeah,
who gives a rip, man?
yeah.
Like I mean there's stuff with because it's all stop motion animation too with the exoskeletons, I think. So they do a lot of rear projection in both the first
Hmm.
two Terminator films, and I don't know, like there's to have the tool in our like have that arrow in my quiver, right? And think about
Hmm.
like, okay, that's cool. Now I
Yeah.
can do this. In fact, like, um, I mean, again, like make the world your oyster. Like, who's to say like you don't do like a downward shot of the Grand Canyon, right? And then you have
Hmm.
somebody laying flat and rear project behind them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
It's
like, yeah, or if we figured out like if we did if we did like models better, like okay, for not necessarily this Lego car right here. This is a James Bond Lego car I got for my wife. But like, yeah, like you could have this. We build a miniature thing of a street and the car, and then you blow it up, and then you rear project it to an actor as something like that's being exploding in the background to them or something like that. So we're able to get a little bit more budget on our some of our ideas. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, I think there's so many things that can be done. Um, I don't know. Sometimes I like I like looking at the um, and being inspired on some of that stuff because like there's no reason we couldn't do some of those shots, right?
mhm,
I don't have the budget or the talent around me to do creature effects like in the thing, but it's not to say that I don't have the tools to, you know, create a similar shot to like the like the like I wanted a cool title, right? To do something like
yeah,
this, steal
yeah,
the plastic
the way
bag
that,
fire thing, you know what I mean?
mhm,
It's a
yeah,
simple gag, but and there's so many. I love like I've been showing the kids a lot of a lot of different movies. In fact, like kind of all over the place. We'll watch kids movies obviously too. But I showed them the Gold Rush with Charlie Chaplin,
mhm,
and you think about like God, some of the shit that they did practically would be in bananas
yeah.
by today's standards. We wouldn't get away with it. Like it's like that's a lot better, and they probably didn't train him in in the 20s and 30s. Like, um, but
Or like
the
I like to do something where we have like a forced perspective shot, something that's like a statue that's big or appears big, but it's actually like it's just the way the lenses are and or because you're mentioning Chaplin, I don't know the name of the movie. I should. I'm a film historian type person, but like he's on roller skates and he's like he almost like goes off the edge of this room that he's in. The actual edge doesn't exist, and it's actually where they've done the painted glass. What is it? What do they call that effect? Where
yeah,
um
it's a matte painting or a
that painting.
paint.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I'd love to have something like that too.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. It's funny. Jim Cameron. I bought his book a while back because whether he's crazy or not, whether people hate him or not, like the dude has made film after film that's just iconic. Um, yeah, but they were showing in that book, like when he was very early in his career, like working for Corman and before, like he was doing, I want to say for, it's not for Corman, but I want to say on Escape from LA, he painted on the glass that's in like the shots that show, bombed out New York in the background and stuff
Okay.
like that. So, like I know he did some effects work like that
Mhm.
and was like a visual artist like that. Absolutely, absolutely incredible. And and when I hear about his wife crying at the 4 hour cut of Avatar 3, I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I can't wait to see it. Maybe she's crying because she's heard about it for so long that she finally, the dream is, sleeper has awakened
Yeah.
and the dream is no longer a dream. Um, no, I mean, how that dude has made a, has made his career is just incredible.
Mhm.
Absolutely incredible. Um, but yeah, I think like I've watched some of these movies with the kids, and I think yeah, some of it gets a little hokey. Like we watched recently Conan the Barbarian and then Conan the Destroyer because hey, you watch one, you're gonna watch both, and in fact, probably gonna watch Red Sonja in the next week too because hey, once you start them. Uh, but it's funny, like all the stuff in Conan the Barbarian, like even it being the older film, like and practical effects, like yeah, there's some there's some like wonkiness to like when he's transforming into the snake a little bit,
Mhm.
but there's a magic to it as well. It's like that transformation with American Werewolf in London, right? Like yes, it has its own aesthetic, and you can see it be a little rubbery for a second. But there's a moment too where it makes the transition. I don't know how you would get to that point. When you get to the transition, he's the actual snake. It's like, man, that's just
Mhm.
it's so incredible practical effects. And then you get to the second one, and my kids were turning to me, and they're like, "Looks kind of fake, doesn't it?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's the kind of the magic of those movies." And I think even
Mhm.
sometimes bad practical effects, or I shouldn't say bad practical effects, not amazing practical effects, still
Mhm.
look good when you compare them to overused CGI in the early aughts, where some of those movies are damn near unwatchable because of how bad the CG is.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a special effect that hasn't aged well, I think is way better than a CGI effect that hasn't aged well. Um, so like yes, I remember when Species came out, and that movie is that movie has I think it's phenomenal, but on a lot of different moments. But the very end, the alien becomes CGI, and it's that part has not aged well at all. Um, but then you look at the special effects for um, Aliens by James Cameron and how the how the Queen is at the end of that movie, and it's just like, well, that's a practical effect, and it's aged really well. So it just
Yeah,
sells. But,
yeah, and that's I think what the Alien Romulus, like having so much of it be practical effects. I mean, it's just more exciting to watch. Like,
mhm,
in fact, like even I'll be honest, it's not perfect because like the alien face hunters where they're kind of going around, you can tell they're remote control. Like, but
mhm,
I'm like so much more forgiving, and I'm like, it just it has that look that I enjoy versus like I know he hates the film, so I'll shit on it. But David Fincher's Alien 3,
yeah.
that movie, like the CG in that movie is
I think it was okay
barely
for the time,
watchable.
but it certainly, yeah, it it aged quickly and not well either, and so the CG for that looks bad, just as bad like in Species, right?
Yeah,
So, um, yeah.
yeah. Um, well, I know we kind of glossed over it at the beginning, but the Academy Awards, like it's, I know it's an interesting topic because it feels like it kind of it can be like for what it has been at one point in film culture and history, it feels like it's slowly sloughing off and becoming more just the event to be the event versus the cultural phenomenon it was at one point.
Mhm.
But I'll be honest, like I actually watched most of the broadcast for the first time in probably 5 years, and I think part of that was the having Conan O'Brien. I think it's almost like that the host that you know and you're familiar with, so
Mhm.
it's more exciting that way. And then also having a fresh like perspective in that like they talk about younger audiences not being excited to watch something like the Oscars, and yet I watched it with my children who are you know fairly young. Like the oldest is a teenager, youngest one's in single digits, and not really bored with the event. Like they were excited by the event of the Oscars, and so it made it kind of fresh to watch, even though I know for a fact they haven't seen all the movies. And in years past, I would have made sure I saw every
Mhm.
Academy Award nominee leading up to the event. And that's just as a working full time and being a dad and a husband. That is not my reality these days, and I'm okay with it too. But I was just curious, like I enjoyed it quite a bit more than I have in the last couple of years. Just kind of curious on what your thoughts were on the Academy
Hey,
Awards.
man, yeah. I still watch the whole thing. It is kind of noticeable the culture shift. It feels like the height of it, and at least in my lifetime, was the '90s, and then probably the 2000s after that. And there was a moment where they start to change up a lot of things about the program to try to, like they went to like two different hosts because it was like how do we. And then there's times where they're trying to make it short as they can, and and even this last year they'll sit there and say that like well, we want to make sure there's no fluff in this, so it's as tight as possible. And then there's still like a dance number about James Bond in a year where there was no James Bond movies that were released, and they just did a James Bond tribute like two Oscar shows ago
Yeah,
because it was at like 60 years or something like that, and there's like multiple Bond songs. And so, and as I pointed out, I even have a Lego car of James Bond. I've even mentioned in this hour that I've read all the Ian Fleming novels. I'm a Bond fan, but I don't necessarily know if I need to see it every time we have an Oscar show. Um, it's interesting. So I was comparing it to like the year prior. So I felt like the year prior was a better around our culture. We had a move. We had so not just blockbuster movies, but they were really good blockbuster movies, and it was Oppenheimer and Barbie.
hmm,
And both movies were really. I mean, I really liked Barbie too. I wasn't excited to see it, but as time was coming up, but then when I did see it, of course, it was hearing that it was good. I go like, wow, there was a lot of thought to put behind this movie, and to make it so it's not just a dumb Super Mario early '90s Super Mario movie. Um, and then you have Oppenheimer, and so it's like Christopher Nolan was like one, and there was you and I talk about sometimes there's that one year where almost any of the five movies besides The King's Speech was actually could have been could have been the best movie of the year by any means. Like it was like The Fighter, Social Network, Inception, Black Swan, and then like The King's Speech. And I feel like this year for me, and I didn't see a lot of the movies, but and part of it's also because I also have kids, and the movies I am watching are I watch something to try to draw inspiration so that I can write something, or it's a movie that came out back in the 70s and I want to watch it because I've never seen it before, but I've always heard about it or something like that. So, like, I wish I would have seen A Complete Unknown, but I did see Dune, and I did see The Substance, and I really liked The Substance. But other than that, like, it just didn't seem like there was a lot of movies that were like you can win the Best Picture of the year, but that doesn't necessarily mean you were really a great Best Picture contender. And I think so when you just kind of have a series of movies that are kind of all King's Speech, like, eh, I don't know. Minus the ones that I thought, like Dune. I thought Dune 2 I thought was the best movie I saw in the year at the beginning. I thought it was the best movie still at the end. And I like the substance quite a bit. But now, grant I haven't seen Honora. So, but, and I don't think it's to, again, I don't want to do the argument where it's like, well, if only there were bigger budgeted movies, then people would go, they would pay attention to the Oscars. But it's just like, there's a year where there was Avatar, which was a phenomenal movie, and then there's The Hurt Locker, another phenomenal movie, and
Yeah.
they're up for Best Picture. And so I think it also just there's just some years where it's like five King speeches in a row, which, as you can tell, I don't like that movie. So, um, and I go, yeah, it's hard. It's not a year where there's like Pulp Fiction and Forrest Gump and Shawshank all up for it. I just
Yeah.
don't know. As the years go by, like there are some years where like you can't see. Oh, like a movie that won Best Picture a couple of years ago was Coda. Coda was a good movie, but it's not a great movie. Like I would never, I never. There's certain movies you watch and you go like, and I know like you haven't seen the movie, but like there's certain movies that you watch and you go like, oh my God, like this movie's phenomenal. It's got it like, and then there's other ones you watch and you go like, eh. And I think there's sometimes where there's 10 movies, but it was just a year of duds. Minus again, I didn't see The Brutalist. I didn't see Complete Unknown, which I really wanted to. Um, but
Brutalist looks incredible. What A24 does is a production company. I think they're the ones that did Nosferatu as well.
yeah,
Man,
we'll see. Well, see, and I
I
didn't
love
know
their stuff.
Brutalist was an A24 film. So now knowing that, my interest level just peaked through the roof. Maybe watching maybe when I'm done watching it, and Nora, maybe my opinion should shift because I have more information. But I wasn't necessarily like wasn't dying to see him, but I don't know.
I,
We'll see.
I thought it was interesting because Nora, I actually wasn't as I knew about the movie more because I knew it was actually selected to be a Criterion Collection release
Yeah.
later this year before it was up for Academy Awards, or maybe in my awareness it was. So it's one of those movies like I actually have ordered it. I've ordered The Brutalist too. Like as soon as I can get them on home video, like I'll watch them. And when I say home video, I mean like the disc because
Mhm.
I'm nut. But like yeah, I mean there's certain like I wish I had like we're talking about like I really want to see Black Book, the new Steven Soderbergh film, uh, for a couple of reasons. One, like it's actually characters that we've seen before from a different perspective. It's the same character as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I believe,
Mhm.
um, and it's just a different period of time, and it looks like a
It
serious
looks
version
really
of
good.
Mr.
Yeah.
and Mrs. Smith, and oh man, I'm all about that because it looks sexy, but it looks dangerous as hell too,
Hmm.
which is why I'm excited for it. And then that Mickey 17, like it's unfortunate, like we can't like there's so many movies that are being made for insane budgets that it feels like they don't have a chance of success, and that also like the magic of going to a movie theater, like it still exists and it's amazing. But in order to get everybody in the world to go see it, it has to be an event like Oppenheimer or like
Hmm.
Barbie to your point. Or Nosferatu. I think a lot of people went and saw Nosferatu. Hell, a
Yeah.
lot of people have seen. I think the last movie I went and saw in theaters, actually I know it was Captain America: Brave New World, which I thought was going to be one of the better Marvel movies, and I enjoyed that movie in it because I got to watch it with my kids and they enjoyed it so much. It made it more enjoyable for me. I was
Hmm.
hoping for a movie more in the vein of like Winter Soldier, in that it was really well done, like spy movie. It just happened to have Captain America in it.
Hmm.
That is not Captain America: Brave New World for those who haven't seen it. But I was reading that like with all the money that movie's made, like it's probably going to be considered a failure. I kind of I don't know I it makes me hold out hope for us in like having scripts coming up in the next couple of years, right? Because
Hmm.
there has to be a point where everything right sizes, everything goes in cycles, right? And it'll get to the point where you can't make $250 million movie because you can't guarantee that it's going to make $1 billion and gross back what it made. I mean, Superman, the new one it looks awesome. Like the more I see from the new Superman movie, looks awesome, but it also looks desperate. Like that trailer has 185 characters. It kind of looks like they're going and do it like instead of they didn't learn their lesson the first time around with making the DC extended universe, right?
Hmm.
Like let's start ramping up and making Avengers happen movie two rather than world building and making us excited about all the characters. It feels like yeah, we're gonna have a Green Lantern in it. We're gonna have Mr. Incredible or Mr. Fantastic, whatever his case, whatever. It's neither of those, but there's like um there's like I don't know 20 or 30 confirmed like DC characters in that movie. I kind of would like to go back to the point of making Richard Dick Donner's Superman movie, right?
Hmm.
Superman, a villain, world build, and then we can do
Hmm.
hell. They had two villains in those movies too, actually. World build, make it exciting, make it a spectacle, because it looks like it's gonna like. I love James Gunn. You tell me there's a new James Gunn movie coming out? Yeah,
Hmm.
it looks awesome. But they keep making movies like I actually saw the Joker 2 and did not think that movie deserved to be just flat out hated. But I also don't think that movie was necessary. I There's a lot I like about that movie, but a Joker musical, see how people wouldn't be excited by the prospect of that.
Yeah, I didn't see the Joker musical. I so I can't comment on that one, though I freely commented on a bunch of other Oscar nominated movies I didn't see. Uh the Superman one, I'm kind of on the fence. Like on one hand, I feel like James Gunn probably made a really good movie. It's just I there's a there's a moment now that I miss. And I was critical of. I thought Henry Cavill was great at Superman, but I was critical of like Man of Steel as a movie, and there were some narrative points I didn't like about that. And now I'm kind of going like, wouldn't I just love to go back to that? Like, there's moments of Batman versus Superman that I was kind of like when we first, there's a lot of those movies when you and I first walk out, I'm always kind of like, eh, liked it, but I didn't love it. And now I'm kind of like, now that I've seen them a few times and I've digested them a few times, and I'm like, God, that's really good. Probably the only one I liked a lot the first time around was like it was the 4 hour cut of Justice League. I liked a lot. But I guess that kind of is a rewatch because I had already seen the dumbed down theatrical version. But um, I don't know. I really hope that there will be a day when you can have like a Shawshank Redemption or like a Jerry Maguire or something like that like, or even a Pulp Fiction, where the movies were just some more of a standalone and not um, setting up the other piece that you haven't told me yet. I think there'll always be a spot for those type of movies, but um, yeah, if at some point if the movie theaters can just figure out a way to go back to tickets that made it so that it was you can actually afford to go, and then also studios they're just going to go bust on a few of these movies. We need that moment in like um this what era was it when like a few of them they did so many spectacle movies that this is like the late 60s or whatever they some of them just went under and
I mean,
so
United Artists went under
yeah.
because of Michael Cimino and Heaven's Gate,
Hmm.
which is an amazing movie, actually. But I think we have a filmmaker friend I'll quote because I think it's true. It's like at one point it was like we were joking about the Lone Ranger. It's like give me $200 million and I'll make you 100 kick-ass westerns.
Hmm.
And then it went to like, oh, scratch that. You give me $250 million, I'll give you 250 kick-ass westerns. It's like, yeah, it's like, I think there comes a point where you watch a movie where you're forced to be, where the filmmakers are forced to be hungry and innovative to go around budget constraints rather than go like, all right, $30 million for Robert Downey Jr. That's going to start, and then $30 million to get Chris Evans and whoever else. It's just
Hmm.
like you're
That was
starting there.
yeah, and that was Tom Rockwell, by the way, who said that. So
Yeah,
he's a filmmaker. Um, and I think well, it kind of rounds into a lot of stuff that we just spoke about. Like how RoboCop was like a movie that it won big, but it also like it didn't have a big budget, and they were forced to be creative, so creative that now there's a four-part docuseries on the trials and troubles that they ran into, and we're talking, and then we're talking about like map painting and rear projection and things like that. There are tools that we can utilize without having to spend a ton of money and have them and to Rockwell's point where which was like, yeah, you give Lone Ranger $250 million, I can make you 250 $1 million westerns and they'd be kick ass too because we have to come up with innovative ways to do things. So
yeah. I
and
mean,
to
we live in
get
an
things
era
done.
where digital technology is like the cost to like we're not shooting on film anymore, or even
Hmm.
if we do, like it's magic when it gets done. But I mean, we watched that. I mean, it's been it's probably been 10
It's
years.
like 10 years
We
since that
watched
last Project
a
Greenlight.
Project Greenlight that you and I watched where the dude was like, has to be on film stock, just has
Yeah,
to be. It's the only way.
yeah,
And then we watched the movie. It's like, God, I don't even know if you ever watched the movie, but the dude was such a cock the whole time. I was like, I'd be grateful to just shoot anything with a budget. And he's like,
yeah.
no, if it doesn't have film,
It's not
it's like,
filmed.
then
We're
you
not doing
watch
it.
it,
Yeah.
and the movie is not. It's about the most unlikable people and the most unlikable situations. And I don't give a shit that it was filmed on film stock
Which
because it's not worth watching.
yeah, which made sense because he didn't seem like a likable person in the show, the director of that. And I don't remember his name. And I bet if we look, I wonder if we look him up, um, if he's made much of anything since.
Well,
Excuse
Chaz,
me,
there's your
but
homework for next time. You find
yeah,
out
Jazz is
who
homework.
made, I think it was called The Ruling Class or something like that. It's
I
Project
start,
Greenlight film.
yeah, I started
Terrible.
it, but I didn't finish it. And so I started not the Project Greenlight show, but the actual movie that that guy made. But then you look at like when they did Feast, and it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like Feast fucking kicks ass.
Yeah. Made two other movies, like two sequels as well.
Yeah. Um, HBO's Project Greenlight. Let's
That
see.
I don't know. I think the pat like you have to be crazy to want to do this shit to a certain extent too, right? And Paul
Yeah.
Verhoeven, Peter Weller, like hell, like they just such intense like alpha males, and yet you get on you hear about like Peter Weller was they were talking about like when he was in the suit, he wanted to be referred to as RoboCop, and this is like 1986, 1987. It's like before method. Like I'm sure there's a lot of method. Like there's you know Robert De Niro and Dustin Hoffman doing method acting at the time, but it's not the Joaquin Phoenix like spectacle that it is at this point. But wanting to be called RoboCop, well, he's talking about, he's like, yeah, I'm in this suit and it's 106 degrees outside because we're filming it in Texas in the summer. Like, yeah, I can kind of see that. Like, it takes you 12 hours to put the suit on. You can't go to the bathroom. You're losing 5 pounds of water weight a day. Perhaps like there's a little insanity that can go along. And again, like the payoff, a movie that I've probably watched more than any other film ever at the age that would surprise any.
Today's standards. Doesn't
Yeah.
I don't think it surprises anybody of our age. Like, but I think if when we say that we showed our kids the same movie at an age when that was similar to when you and I saw it, people kind of go like, "Really, Robo? Like already?" Or not? It's like, man, they were fucking making toys for that shit when we were kids. So like, there was an expectation that as a child you kind of did see the movie because they're selling you and they hadn't even wrapped up to the part where they're doing the PG-13 versions. They were just making they were making toys out of the first two movies.
Well, hell, yeah, when they talk about the merchandising for the film at one point, and some of the stuff I totally forgot. But I mean, they rushed out a cartoon, which totally makes sense. They had so many action figures, which again they tried to use the cartoon to sell them, but again, like yeah, yeah. There was a back in the '80s we used to have the plastic like suit, like thin plastic suit,
Oh, like a chest plate.
Halloween Halloween costumes, and then you'd have that molded plastic face that went over, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I totally had that. They even had like the other big thing, like Ninja Turtles were big for it too, but it was like you're talking about like a dress up suit where it was like the RoboCop helmet, and then it
Hmm.
had some sort of gun, and then like the uniform that's
Yeah.
pretty fake as hell. But
I
yeah, like
I had a hard plastic RoboCop helmet that just you put on, had the visor that you could
yeah,
barely see through. I had several of the toys that were. I had the car. I had the toy where it had the like you put the cap like the cap
yeah,
paper in the back, and you can just go and it went out with
yeah,
his back, and it would create the gun sound because it's the firecracker going off in it. The
yeah.
caps.
It was the greatest. Um, but you think about like all the stuff that goes into like the passion that goes into making those. It's like, yeah, there's a certain level of insanity, and then you see what that movie predicts as well, like predicting both like CNN and Fox News, um, like media or news as entertainment,
Hmm.
and how far it goes, and then American consumerism. God, if that movie isn't due for a rated R, like actual like follow up or remake, I don't know what is. Because instead of again like studios, I think as much as they're like we'll pivot $200 million into the new Avengers film, like make movies for adults that's entertaining. It can be done like Deadpool and
Hmm.
Wolverine, all the Deadpool films, like give them a reasonable budget,
Hmm.
make them worth seeing, and you can make a hard ass R things.
Hmm.
I think one of the things that you and I were talking about before we did this session, that doesn't get doesn't like there's not enough raunchy comedies.
Yeah.
Like the 70s were ripe with them, right? And then it kind of dies off when you go through that Puritan like Reagan era, and then you get back into like raunchy comedies again in the midnight, and then it dies off, and it comes back.
Mhm.
It goes in cycles. Like Hangover, I think those are like the last like super raunchy movies. We're due for something else, but somebody's got to have the balls to make it. And
Yeah. That's probably the other part is it's the balls to make it. Um, Brandy and I talk a lot about like writing a project together, and she likes to write comedy more. Um, I actually think that I'm kind of a funny person, but I always end up writing these dramas and stuff. And then as I was mentioned before we got on this, I've done a couple stand-up comedies, like 10 minutes here and there, and I've looked at dibble dabbled in the stand-up comedy stuff. Um, but I told her I was like, it's like if we did one, I'd love to do a raunchy comedy, and yeah, have the stones to say the things that we haven't said in a long time, and you know,
well,
and just kind of but for but joke's got to work. A joke has to work in the right way, and actually have a comedy series that Brandy and I are working on, and I've got two that they're like short scripts, but they're but they're uh we haven't shot it yet. Thinking about calling it the Comedy Shit Show. Doing like 8 to 10 short skits. One of them is about abortion. Another one is the challenge of George Carlin used to say like, "Can rape be funny?" And so I'm kind of doing one where it's like the challenge of can rape be funny? Um, and so that kind of stuff.
well,
So,
I mean, can it? Hell, again, the '80s were like '70s into the '80s were a ripe time where like God, what movie is it? It's with a guy in a gorilla suit gets put like taped into a costume. I don't think it's Trading Places, but it's like something of that era. Um, but yeah, in a sense, like they lock up a dude who's dressed up in a gorilla suit and put him in with an actual gorilla, and they're like, "Oh, look, he's starting to get hot," and it's implied that like that gorilla is just gonna rape that dude in the suit because it thinks it's a
mhm.
chick. Or man, Peter Weller. Not a good movie with Peter Weller that I grew up watching called Shakedown with Sam Elliott, where they're like a cop and a lawyer in the 80s teaming up to take down the bat. The movie starts off in jail and the guy's handing out lunch. He's like, "Do you want a condom with your lunch?" And this like Wall Street guy's like, "No, why would I want a condom with our lunch?" He's like, "Oh, well, around here they want us to promote safe sex." And the white guy's like, "No, I don't want a condom with my lunch." And his cellmate, it's this big black guy's like, "I'll take two." And it's like, yeah, yeah. I mean, it, yeah. Can it be funny? Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole era of it, and the time has come. It's probably going to be a thing again. We've kind of gone through a highly Puritan phase, again, a holier than thou phase, and
Mhm.
again, like do all these things hold merit? Like, yeah. Should rape happen? No. Uh, but like in the sake of like sometimes like making movies is and making art is coping with the horrors of reality. You know, nobody knows what's walked in other shoes, but some of us don't cope well at all, and others use art to mystify and like, hey, there's movies that they made in the '80s like Porky's. Um, hell, I think it's also Revenge of the Nerds. Like some of these movies that aren't in print anymore either, by the way. But I want to say Revenge of the Nerds. At one point, like the dude's having sex with his girlfriend, and then or no, the nerd dresses up as the dude's boyfriend, and then they go off into a room, and she thinks it's him, and he ends up having sex with her. It's like, yeah, now you make that you're not gonna have a very positive reaction. You watching Steve Martin stuff from The Jerk and Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid. Yeah, like it's very much of a time. But if I also don't think though that in the spirit of those movies, like they're just being raunchy and being over the top to just get a laugh, not to hurt.
Hmm.
Same with stand-up comedians, like we were talking about earlier, Bill Burr and others. Like they're saying things not to condone things, but to laugh at the absurdity
Yeah.
of things. Is anything off limits? I mean, Shakespeare joked about a lot of dark shit because he needed to get laughs out of the poorly educated.
Hmm.
He needed to keep them entertained. So yeah, yeah, it all has merit in some way as long as it has merit. So
Hmm.
with that, I don't know. Do you have anything you want to sign off on?
Not really. Let's see. So, um, if you're watching this, you're wondering where you can see some more short films. Well, you'd be surprised we have our New Ogden Cinema channel. So if you're already on YouTube, just slide right over and you can see a lot of the projects that we've already worked on. Short film wise, our feature films. I have feature films available right now on Amazon Prime called Married and Loving It, um, and probably a lot of things in there that are there's some colorful things um, in that movie that I don't take back by any means. It started out as a drama that I was writing, and then turned into a kind of a comedy at the end of that. You can find me on Instagram at ryan.filmmaker. Sorry, ryan.mcdonald.filmmaker. And you can also find my product. I also make hot sauce. This is called Tasty as Fuck. It's Thai chili serrano sauce. And I have a YouTube channel called Hot Sauce and Chill, where I try out different hot sauces and talk about movies. And that's on YouTube. Or you can find me on TikTok also, again, ryan.film.mcdonald.filmmaker. So,
Yeah. And just a note on Married and Loving It, not to give away too much, but should you see it? Absolutely. And if you're thinking like these two misogynistic assholes and what they have to tell you what, just to entice you, there's a castration scene in Married and Loving It. That's funny, all right? And I highly recommend seeing it.
hmm.
In relation to the rest of the film, you won't expect where it's coming from, but yeah, absolutely. If you think that we won't have a good time at anyone's expense, sometimes you just got to.
Hmm.
But yeah, hit the subscribe button. Check out past episodes, future episodes. Let us know what you like, what you don't, and till then, we'll see you at the movies.